The Act Against Suicide system will provide you with the tools you need to assist anyone who you are concerned may be considering suicide. This training will enable you to act as a first responder and provide help to people who are considering suicide. If someone is suffering a heart attack, first responders are likely to save a life if they can recognize the event and provide assistance. However, first responders can only help if they have been shown the signs to look for. Thankfully, everyone can learn to recognize signs of suicidal thoughts, provide assistance, and save lives. Some of you taking this training may have lost a loved one to suicide. We are sensitive to your loss and are sorry for it. During this training, you may become upset or feel that you could have done something to have saved someone you knew. It is important to remember that we are only responsible to act if we have been taught how. This training is new and very few people have taken it before, so you shouldn't feel guilty for something you didn't know how to do. Using this Act Against Suicide system will enable you to recognize and stabilize someone who may be considering suicide. Much like a paramedic, you will be able to recognize signs of distress in the people around you, assist them, and then take them to get the professional help that they need. Paramedics are not doctors. Their job is to keep the person alive until they get them to professional help. Explaining that there may well be a workable solution to their problem and convincing them to agree to wait and see if together you can find them the professional help that they need can save lives. This ideology is not intended to be a form of counseling or treatment for people considering suicide. It is simply a vehicle for you to offer hope to anyone through positive action. Suicidal thoughts are not the problem. They are the symptom of an underlying problem that must be addressed before the thoughts will subside. Before you learn how to ask someone if they are considering suicide, you need to know what warning signs to look for. The more warning signs that are present, the greater the risk may be. Please ensure that you take all of these signs seriously. You may have heard some of these myths about suicide. To use the ACT system to its full potential, it's important that you understand the truth. Myth: no one can stop a suicide. Fact: when people get help, they will stop being suicidal. Myth: asking someone about suicide will increase their risk of suicidal behavior. Fact: asking lowers people's anxiety and their risk of suicide. Myth: only experts can prevent suicide. But the fact is, anyone can help prevent suicide. Here are some more myths about suicide. Myth: suicidal people don't tell anyone about their plans. Fact: suicidal people will communicate their intent. Myth: people who talk about suicide won't attempt it. Fact: people who talk about suicide often try. Myth: there is nothing anyone can do to stop a suicidal person. Fact: the best way for you to help someone who is considering suicide is to act. It is the most preventable kind of death. Here are some direct verbal clues to listen for. I've decided to kill myself. I wish I were dead. I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to end it all. If I lose my job, if I don't pass this course, or if I don't get this promotion, I'll kill myself. This last one is called a contingent suicide plan, and it can be very dangerous. These quotes were all taken from people who went on to suicide. Sometimes people can be less transparent when they are stating their intent to suicide. Some examples include, I'm tired of living, I just can't go on. My family would be better off without me. Who cares if I'm dead anyway? I just want out. Pretty soon, you won't have to worry about me. Behaving in certain ways can indicate that someone may be planning a suicide attempt. Some examples of these behavioral clues include any previous attempts for suicide, getting access to any means of suicide like stockpiling pills. Depression, moodiness, and hopelessness are not necessarily indicative of a suicidal person, but they should be treated with care and referred to get help. Organizing their personal affairs, such as writing up their will or saying goodbye to those close to them, giving away their most valued possessions, a sudden interest or sudden disinterest in religion, drug or alcohol abuse, or a relapse for a recovered substance abuser. Many suicides are committed by heavily intoxicated people. And finally, any unexplained anger, aggression, or irritability can be cause to refer someone to get help. Sometimes people consider suicide if they find themselves in a situation from which they feel they cannot escape. Some examples of these types of situations include being fired from a job or expelled from school, an unwanted move for a child away from their home, school, or friends, any loss of a relationship such as a parent, partner, teacher, therapist, or friend. Any recent death can be a trigger for suicide, especially if the death was caused by suicide. A serious or terminal illness can be a trigger for suicide. Sudden loss of freedom or fear of punishment, like a sentence to term in jail, or any anticipated loss of financial security can trigger suicidal thoughts. And lastly, the fear of becoming a burden to those around you can be a potential clue to a suicide crisis. Here are some tips to keep in mind before we consider how to ask someone about suicide. Don't wait. Ask the question. And once you've asked, be persistent for an answer. Ensure you speak to the person one-on-one in a safe environment in which they can feel comfortable. The most important part is listening, so make sure you have plenty of time to talk and let them speak freely. Finally, make sure you have your information and referral resources ready to pass on after the conversation. Please remember, making the effort to ask someone about suicide is much more important than how you ask them. Here are some less direct ways to approach someone about suicide. Have you been unhappy? Have you been very unhappy? Have you been so unhappy lately that you are thinking about ending your life? Do you ever wish that you could go to sleep and never wake up? In some cases, people don't want to hurt themselves so much as simply not wanting to continue living. Some more direct approaches include, when people are as upset as you, they often wish they were dead. Are you feeling that way? You look really sad lately. Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Please remember, if you cannot ask the question, it is important that you find someone who can. Ensure you avoid statements that will provoke guilt in the person you are concerned about, like, have you considered your parents? They don't need more guilt and shame, they need to be heard. And most importantly, they need your assistance. Many suicidal people have lost hope that there is any help for them. As someone who cares, it is your role to get them to a professional or organization who can provide assistance. The first step in persuading someone from suicide is to listen and give them your full attention. Suicide is simply a solution to a perceived unsolvable problem. If we can help people to solve their problems, they don't need to die. Please do not rush to judgment when someone shares with you their plans to end their life. Instead, offer hope in any form. Hope saves lives. After you understand their intent, ask questions like, will you go with me to get help? Will you let me help you get help? Will you promise me that you won't kill yourself until we've found you someone who can help? These questions are to ensure you get a commitment from them not to attempt suicide until help is found. Suicidal people may see themselves as completely hopeless, so sometimes you need to make the effort to pick up the phone or get them in your car to get help. You can use statements like, I want you to live. I'm on your side. We'll get through this. Or, who else might help us, to connect with the person considering suicide. Your willingness to offer help can rekindle their hope. There are 3 ways that you can refer someone you are concerned about to get help. The best referral involves personally taking them to a professional or an organization that can help. The next best referral involves getting a commitment, then making arrangements to connect the person to help. For example, making an appointment for them. The third best referral is to provide them with the referral information and get a good faith commitment from the person not to suicide until they get help. Any willingness to accept help, even in the future, is a good outcome. If at any stage you are not certain how to proceed, simply call Lifeline on 13 11 14 for free and confidential assistance. Remember, since almost all efforts to persuade someone to live will be met with agreement and relief, don't hesitate to make the first move. The most important part of this system is that you stay committed to the person you are concerned about. Follow up with them as much as needed to ensure that they know that you care about them. Your actions can save their life. When you ask the question, connect with them to explore their other options and take them to get help, you plant the seeds of hope. And hope helps prevent suicide.